renovation plans for the historic MLK Memorial Library in downtown DC took another step forward. At a public meeting, 2 of the finalists among the competing architect teams presented their ideas to a review committee. The teams included Meccano, Martinez, and Johnson, Pactel Architects and Ayer St. Gross, and the Studios Architecture and the Freelon Group.
This building is not just a facade, it's also very important in the interior. Imagine this was my dream, that people will start to love this building so much that they even bring their books from home to read them in this library. These are our first thoughts. We did it without talking to you, without listening to you. You've seen the plan. It has 5 important elements. Clean up all 3 horizontal floors on top of here. Introduce 2 glass vertical public cores. Introduce areaways to get more natural light and natural ventilation. Make a garden penthouse and a public terrace on top of the building. And if you want to add something, do it with an elegant, simple beam with solid ends. These are our thoughts. Imagine, that's the existing building. This is what we do. These 2 big cores become public and totally transparent. These 2 cores will become new, but we keep them for staff and back-of-house logistics. Makes a very clear zone that this is staff and this is public, and that the staff service the public. I hated the entrance. I hate that point, so we checked what Mies thought of it. And we researched, the old model is on top in this building. He loved to have it, it was meant to be plain by Mies. So what did we do? This is the existing one. We wanted to have it, he also wanted not bricks, he didn't want to have this brick, so we checked if it's possible, or this maybe, hey, this is plain. And if we imagine, if we make big areaways going down, so when you enter, and you make it totally glass, and you make areaways, so if you enter, you can also see what's happening in the lower ground floor. And you make it very transparent. And these 2 cores, these areaways, also define 2 terraces on both sides for cafes. Okay, now we enter the building, but then you still have over there is the back of house, is the loading bay. That's not nice. Imagine if we bring this loading bay, you see it on the upper section, if we bring it down. That means that we can have a formal auditorium, that we open up that part, where's now these 2 paintings. And what I'm doing now here, I could do it there. And I can close or open it with a glass partition wall, with sliding doors. Then it becomes your marketplace. 2 cafes, a library cafe and a bookstore cafe on both sides to activate the plinth. And adult service. Great Hall, 1972. Great Hall, 2014. Now, I think you did already a great job. But still, it's not the library of the future. It's a market hall. It's welcoming. It's totally transparent to that side of the city. Visibility inside and outside. And 2 big screens, here and here. Because you want lectures, you want book signing, you want TED Talks, you want recitals, you want debate here. Okay, now I take you to the lower ground floor, to the innovation floor. Well connected and visible, as you can see here, with a stair that becomes an auditorium. Well connected to the loading dock. Behind that wall is the storage and archives of the library, with staff around it. We make a total areaway around it to get light and natural air in the building. There's a lot of people now working in this building that has no daylight. Imagine that we take all the walls here in the streets. We take them away. It would make such a big difference. Okay. Now I take you to the second floor, what I call the educational floor. Here we celebrate education. On that side of the building is for children. The other side, what is more facing the city, is teenagers, and that side is for adaptive services. Staff is serving it, and you also have group rooms in front of it. I think a lot of people, what I learn, hate this building. How many people hate this building? I understand it, because I came here, I also felt a kind of hate, love. It was difficult. But maybe we should try to get you all more in love with it if we change it, if we show you, imagine you the possibilities. All these floors above it are as open as this floor. And it's a lot of, not many columns. It's a total, the possibility, you can take away all these brick walls and have it as open as here. Why I'm so convinced? Left is the Library of Birmingham, the right is your library. We have even bigger floors and much better light. So in your library, you have better light than in Birmingham. And you have even your columns, you have less columns than in Birmingham. You have more flexibility. One very important thing what we propose, don't put the books. Books don't like light. People like light. So put the people to the facade. And it gives you also better orientation to the city and then better connectivity. Okay, level 3. A more traditional floor. It's here where we celebrate a book. We propose to make a wall just in front of here. It's 110 meters long, 360 feet, book shelving. One large book wall, with in front of it lower books, where you have just still good visibility lines. This is the living room of the city, with different kind of ways of sitting, and a very good, recognizable, traditional service point. Because there's a lot of people who want to keep the library the way it used to be. This is their floor. And behind that wall is the chief librarian with his staff. With a desk, with staff meeting rooms. We thought maybe the chief librarian here and the board of trustees there on the corner. This is now what I call your cellar. Your exhibition about Martin Luther King, your conference center is in the cellar. Don't do that. You should celebrate, this library should celebrate Martin Luther King. So we introduced level 4, what we call the history and future floor. It's about the history, but also about the future. When you enter, you come up, these two paintings, we put them there on that floor. Washingtonia, Black Studies on the left side. All the chairs you still have of Mies van der Rohe go to that floor. And here we make your conference center, that whole corner. There's a beautiful oval auditorium, 2 stories high, it peeps through the roof. And it's here where you, it's the freedom of speech what you celebrate. The roof garden, a public discovery terrace on this corner with a cafe, so everybody can see it, and a secret garden for the staff, with a staff lounge and a staff training lab. Imagine, this was your new library. Should you start to love this building? You also ask us to make 2 options, library and library plus. I've been standing on top of your roof. It's amazing, I have to tell you. I started to think I would love to live here myself. How does it come? It's so beautiful. It's peeping out of the grid. It's a change in the grid. It has to do with the historical map of Washington. They plan to have here a cathedral. So it makes that point very special. So we started to make, and you can see it here, all options. What should we put on top of the building, because it's also an urban issue. And what we did, make it following and changing in the grid, to make a very public part of the building and a less public part of the building. Here it is. We keep the library exactly the same. One of the cores, half of it we use for the residentials. You go all the way up and you come in a hall, you see very green atrium. Because I think if you put residential on top of it, it should be a symbol also of sustainable housing in a very pleasant way. The southeast corner now. If you want to make an addition, we said it should be simple, it should be elegant, it should have solid ends, and it should not be competing with the public building, not competing with Mies van der Rohe. Southwest corner. Simple, elegant, solid end, not competing with the public building. And make the public building maybe even more public because you are emphasizing that corner. Imagine. These were just our first thoughts. We did it without you, without listening to you. This is what I can offer you. This is what I would love to do, to bring together what I call three important characters of Washington. The special spot on the grid you have, the historical Ellicott map of Washington. Respect, pay respect to Mies van der Rohe, and research what is possible to prepare this building for the library of the future. But most important, of course, the values, bring in the values of Martin Luther King. I know he's a hero in the United States, he's a hero in Washington, but realize, I'm just from a very small country in the Netherlands. He was or still is a hero also for me. And to make this building, to reflect his idea, would be my dream. This is what I can offer you, imagination. Thank you.
My role today is to discuss some of the opportunities of the project, and I'd like to do that by beginning just to read something. And the purpose of it is simply to kind of set a tone for our approach to the project and help you understand that as we then get into more particulars. One of the major challenges of the project is to transform an iconic building into an iconic library. MLK already has two icons. Martin Luther King Jr. Was a deeply thoughtful person with a luminous mind, and Mies van der Rohe was an equally thoughtful architect of his time. Our ambition is to retain the historical presence of the current Mies design with its quiet rhythms and elegant composure, and pair it with a new luminous community heart, something that the library doesn't have at the moment, we don't think. The MLK Library is one of a limited number of Mies buildings in this country. It's part of a certain heritage in the US. If that heritage is lost at this time, it's gone for good and it won't be back. For us, that's a very serious consideration. In doing what we're proposing today, and it is only obviously a proposal, as Bill said, we're attempting to make something that's really memorable, something that you won't find elsewhere, both in terms of a sense of a intimate library community and as iconic form. We've kept the exterior of the library pretty much as is. We've tried to maintain large portions of the building as is, the main level, and the two bays on either side all the way up. The only major addition we've made to the building is a cloud-like form that you can think of as seemingly has drifted across the roof of the building and got caught in the middle. The cloud does many things. It holds a unique set of spaces and is kind of cool, new kind of space for the library. It transfers daylight through itself and into the kind of heart that we've opened up in the middle of the library. It gathers energy, it shades itself. It's a digital imaging transfer surface that connects all the levels of the library. So the library, the physical library, becomes transparent to all the activities within. And it is something in itself. an immediately recognizable and memorable figure, a kind of little force of nature shepherding light into the building, etc., and gathering energy. I guess you could also think of it as a kind of new pet for the library that just needs a name. The new Cloud Heart Community Center, we hope will act with Mises Building and Martin Luther King's memory to form a new three-part icon for the library. Another major challenge of the project is to move from a 20th century library to a 21st century library, with all the additional specific spaces that implies. You have all the kind of malleable general spaces in Mises Library right now, and if they're maintained, they're perfectly usable. But you need those kind of specific spaces to pair with them to make a kind of new set of opportunities in the library. The idea of, this slide is called Remix, and the idea of Remix is really to make the most of what you have. I'm just going to describe this very briefly because John is going to go into more detail at different levels. And we've tried to make different characters as you move up the library. The lower level we think of as really malleable space. It's space that can be affected by the people who use it. The main level we think still of as Mies space, but we have some ideas about kind of major transformations that can happen, and John will talk about that in a minute. The next three levels are what we call the kind of community heart and the mixing space of the library. It gathers together almost all the programs of the library in a fairly intimate space. So it's more like a kind of community living room than it is like a kind of grand representation. The next level is the cloud that I spoke of earlier, and it operates as a kind of giant chandelier for the community sort of heart space below. And finally, there's a sky terrace, which acts in conjunction with the community mixer, the cloud, and the outdoor space to make this kind of layered new heart soul for your building.
The winning architect for the Central Library renovation was announced at the next public event.
Good morning, and welcome to the DC Public Library. This is an amazing day. I am Joy Mex. I'm the interim director for the DC Public Library. And on behalf of the library, I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining us this morning as we take yet another step in improving libraries in the district. Last summer, we began looking for an architect team that can help us reimagine the district's central library. 26 architect teams submitted their qualifications. We narrowed the list to 3 teams that presented Saturday before more than 300 people, with another 50 or so participating online. Since July of last year, we have asked library staff and the public to tell us what they would like to see in a reimagined central library. People have provided feedback in many ways through an online crowdsourcing platform, online and print surveys, focus groups of teens, teachers, parents, neighbors, people with disabilities, and adults, and on comment cards. In all, we've heard feedback from more than 1,600 people to date. The Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library can be an amazing library for the 21st century. Now that we have a design team identified, we can begin to envision the next chapter for the library in the district. And here's what that means. The architect will work with library staff and the community on continuing to determine what services will be offered in the new Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. There will be more community meetings, more focus groups, more surveys, and more crowdsourcing to come. As we explore what kind of library to build, the advisory panel will help the library continue to collect input from the community on what they would like to see in the renovated Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. And I would like to thank the advisory panel for working with us on this project, some of whom are in the audience today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joy. I want to thank you also for serving as the interim director of our library system. during the time that we were working to find a new CEO, new director, new chief librarian for the person who I think is absolutely the best in the world. What an extraordinary job Jenny Cooper did leading our library system. You know, I'm so glad that she came back today. She retired. We did not want her to go. I don't think anybody wanted her to go. But what a legacy she has left behind with our library system. A library system that is immensely better as a result of the work that she did during her time here. So, Jenny, thank you for coming back today to be a part of this auspicious announcement. We really appreciate everything that you have done. You know, I've been working with the library system in one way or the other, well, for years. Actually, I went to the ribbon cutting on the Northeast Library just a few weeks ago, which is the one I grew up in. I literally grew up in that library 937 years ago, right at 7th and Maryland Avenue, and there actually are, you know, there's some furniture in there that's in there from way back in the day. But the library looks great, and it's one of, I think, 15 now renovated, newly built neighborhood libraries in the District of Columbia. You know, this was a discussion some number of years ago about doing the Central Library, and my own view, and I just come on to the council, was that while this was a good thing to do, to be able to work on the Central Library, what was immensely important to people was what was going on in our neighborhoods. And my view was, why don't we get that done, you know, move forward with that progress, and then we'll come back to the Central Library. And now with 15 of the libraries having been done, and we continue on with that, we are back today with the King Memorial Library. There are some of us who will remember when the Carnegie Library was our Central Library, and what a magnificent building it is. And then this building was built as, I guess, a Mies van der Rohe product. And it has served us well now for, I guess, the better part of 4 decades in the District of Columbia. So this takes us to a new stage. It takes us to a stage where we will continue to focus on how well we read, how well we learn, and how well we communicate. And I was really pleased to be able to invest, Jenny and Neil, $103 million in the upgrade of the King Library. This will allow us to remain contemporary in the city. There is no better location than this, in my opinion. So, you like it, huh? Yeah, 9th and G is right at the heart of things in downtown, and we had moved to somewhere else. I don't know exactly where it would be at this stage. So we're staying here, and we're staying in a place that I think people are very familiar with, and the investment will allow us, one, to be able to substantially upgrade the library, and then through a public-private partnership, there will be other investments that will be made in this library building that will get us probably to something, I don't know, $150 to $175 million total investment when it's all said and done. So I want to thank the firms that are the finalists, and I'm not going to mention them because I'm going to leave that to Neil to do that. I want to thank them for their creativity, their interest in our library system, and their interest in providing us with what will be a model for the flagship, if you will, of our entire library system here in the District of Columbia. I want to thank the Board of Trustees, John Hill, who has done a fantastic job serving as chair of the Board of Trustees. Some of you may know that John is now the, I guess he's the CFO for the city of Detroit, and I think we all know that's a full-time job, to say the least. So he's unable to be with us today. But again, I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be a part of this, announcement. And now we have, I think, what is a bold vision that will be translated into a magnificent flagship library.
Good morning, everyone. I want to publicly thank our mayor for his continued leadership of DC Public Libraries. I was telling him while we were standing to the side that truly without his vision and support, we wouldn't be here today. Because as the mayor mentioned, I've been in the government for a long time. I just can't keep a job, one job. But really, the idea of a renovated Martin Luther King Library is a result of the vision that Mayor Gray shared years ago. So again, thank you for your continued support. $103 million really does say I'm supportive, and we look forward to working with you and your team in completing this project. So over the last 6 months, DC Public Libraries enlisted the best local, national, international architects in developing a vision for the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library. After reviewing 26 proposals, narrowing the field to 3 teams, and offering 3 distinctive visions of a renovated Martin Luther King Jr. Library for public scrutiny, the Technical Evaluation Committee, and many of the members are here. If you're on the Technical Evaluation Committee and you're here, please stand so we can recognize you. Jenny Cooper, our former chief librarian, was on that committee. Thank you guys so much for your work and support. So with input to the Technical Evaluation Committee from the Advisory Committee, and we do have some Advisory Committee members here. Please stand. I see Robin Diener up front, and thank you guys so much. And with input from the Board of Trustees, I do see some of my fellow trustees here. Bonnie, you may want to stand so we can recognize you, and whoever else is in here. So after all of that input, we're ready to announce the team that we think will provide leadership and guidance on this most important civic project. So today, on behalf of the DC Public Library Board of Trustees, I am pleased to announce the team of Martinez and Johnson with Makanu have been selected as the architect for the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Library renovation, and that deserves a round of applause. This team has demonstrated an understanding of how a newly renovated central library complements the work that DCPL has been doing with our branch libraries. Their design approach focused on all 4 sides of this building, and this was the only team that demonstrated experience in dealing with the mayor's agent for historic preservation. And for those of you who've been in development, that's no small feat. I'd like to thank the Technical Evaluation Committee, as I said, for their great work, and they'd spent a lot of time in deliberating the proposals, weighing feedback, not just from the advisory groups and the board, but from the public at large, and making a selection of a team that I'm sure we will all be proud of.